So, Knock at the Cabin is the latest film by M. Night Shyamalan. And you're probably wondering, is there a twist here? It's an M. Night Shyamalan film. There's got to be a twist. And here's the thing. There kind of isn't a twist here. Well, not really. So, like, this whole story is all about kind of, like, more about keeping the viewer in the dark with, like, the ambiguity. And apparently, from what I've heard, based on the novel that Shyamalan is adapting here, the book is more or less that. It's just keeping you in the dark and just kind of like embracing the ambiguity of the situation, which Shyamalan is known for starting with in most of his films. And then usually by the end, he has some like bizarre or very tactile twist at the end there. And this film, Knock at the Cabin, is actually quite different. And I think that's really great because it highlights what Shyamalan does best, which is building up the suspense of a scenario where you don't quite have all the answers. And it works so well here. So the premise is that a married couple, Eric and Andrew, and their adopted daughter, Wen, are staying at a cabin on vacation. And then one day, they are visited by four strangers, played by Dave Bautista, Nikki Akuma Bird, Abby Quinn, and Rupert Grint, who we haven't seen in quite some time. I think the last film he's in was Moonwalkers, but I could be wrong. Like, he's definitely been in a few different projects since Harry Potter. But anyway, so the four strangers show up, and they tell the family that they believe that the world is going to come to an end, and the only way to prevent it is if one person in this family of three kills themselves. That one of them has to go, otherwise the world is going to end. And the strangers try to make this like, they don't quite want to like force them to do that. They want to make it seem believable. So they try to stress their point. They try to be as compassionate as they can. They try to be calm and explain it. I love the fact that Dave Bautista, who's like the biggest guy among them, is trying to be the most heartfelt and sincere and trying to like beg these people to understand. But at the same time, like, you know, the couple, like, they don't believe them. Like, they learn that, like, you know, these people all thought they had religious visions and that they all connected on a message board, and they think they're just making this up just so that they can, you know, have one person in this coupling kill themselves because they're like against gay people because they've experienced that discrimination. But at the same time, there's this questioning, like, is like with each like kind of like passing few hours, one of the strangers will die. Like, they will willingly sacrifice themselves. They'll die, and then after they die, a tragic event will happen that affects the rest of the world. Like, there'll be an earthquake, there'll be a tidal wave, there'll be an outbreak, like planes will fall from the sky, horrible stuff will happen. And the couple is still trying to think, like, okay, well, maybe they planned this out. Maybe this, like, they have to have planned this out. Like, there's no way. And later they learn that, oh wait, one of them is someone who discriminated against us. But at the same time, they're thinking, like, well, because like one of them has a concussion, and they're thinking maybe they are telling the truth, or are we hallucinating it, or is the world going to come to an end if we don't kill one of them or not? And even by the end of the film, where a resolution is reached, jackpots on the internet, and I love how they set that up, because the thing is, the film is set up where, like, you could see where M. Night Shyamalan would put in that explanation for what's really going on here. And that, like, because it could really either go one of two ways, or it could just go in a much more bizarre left field, you know, laugh it up ending. And thankfully it doesn't. The tension mounts so well here, where you're constantly questioning whether or not the world is going to end, you know, if this scenario doesn't happen, and who is manipulating who in this scenario. And I love the tension that builds up here. I love the camera work that gets really up close and uncomfortable with these characters, especially for the first few shots in this film are kept very, very close to the face. There's lots of close-up shots that are very disorienting and create this kind of like creepy feeling where basically you don't have all the answers, and the more that it keeps going, it feels like everyone else doesn't know the answers either. Where it leads to there are some like showdowns. There's some pretty violent exchanges as like the couple try to escape amid these people who seem like desperate extremists who really believe that the world is going to end. And the more that it keeps going, the more you kind of believe them, but at the same time, you're just like, you don't want to believe them because definitely like there's a lot to munch on with this film in terms of its themes. Beyond just like the discrimination and the conspiracy theories that brew online, there's also I think like a more explicit theme I think that gets stated more towards the third act about accepting humanity and its faults and trying to like realize empathy. Like a little bit of that theme is stated quite bluntly in the first act of the film, but towards the end of the film it becomes way more blunt and way more on the surface. And for some people, I know they're going to hate this. I know they're going to hate that, like, you know, they make the themes very upfront and obvious about, you know, how, you know, okay, these four people who came here, they kind of represent, you know, like the four horsemen of the apocalypse and all that. But I like that. I think it works here for the way that Shyamalan directs here, because it always keeps the audience tuned in with the themes. Like, it's never kept like vague enough or like, you know, kind of all that up in the air that a lot of the audience is going to get lost on it. That I think it works here in making a film that doesn't just give you like a satisfying answer by the end, like a clear explanation for that. Like even some people are going to walk out of this film and they're going to think, okay, I know exactly what was happening and I do believe these characters were in the right. But then there's other elements you got to consider, like, okay, well, but no, it doesn't quite seem that way as well. And this kind of leads, like, the ending itself, I was kind of like going back and forth on, because here's the thing, like the premise itself is great. The ambiguity, I love it. I love the tension and all that mounts in the film. But when you get up to the final scene, I feel like you really gotta stick it to make this story complete here. And I feel like Shyamalan mostly gets it. I'm a little bit like, I'm fairly satisfied with the ending in terms of like maintaining a certain level of the ambiguity while stressing more of the themes. But also there's a little bit of like an off tone towards the end there, where it feels like this type of film should still end with terror. And it kind of ends a little bit too, not too neat, but almost kind of like too much more content than I think it should be for like these bigger themes. But that being said, you know, for having that much to munch on, and, you know, for the many debates that are going to follow with this film about, you know, were the conspiracy theorists right? Was the apocalypse coming? Or was the couple right? Was this just, you know, crackpots who were just, you know, have lost their minds? And you're going to get a lot of discussion on, you know, what actually went down here. And I love that. I love that, like, an M. Night Shyamalan film is not just like, you know, a simple twist to wrap everything together in a little bit of like a ridiculous closure bow for this type of story. I like the fact that there are going to be people who are going to come out of this film and they are going to be talking about, you know, who is in the right, and they are going to have like debates over, you know, what really went down by the end of this film. And for an M. Night Shyamalan film to do that and not just be like, oh, okay, I know what was happening here, and then just reveal the twist to everyone, I love that. Not to mention the camera work here. I love it. I love how they hold on shots that are creepy where they're dragging bodies out of the cabin, and how the camera holds on like the weapon as it comes down onto like someone's head, and the very creepy way that the cult kills itself off by, like, you know, concealing their faces and then saying humanity will be judged. That's all staged brilliantly. That's what I love so much. Like, this film highlights everything that Shyamalan does great in his films and kind of lets them linger. It's weird because I almost kind of would have preferred that that he went even a little bit, maybe even a little bit like blunter in his themes by the end, just to kind of hammer it home a little bit more. But for what the film is, for just mounting the tension here and always keeping the audience in the dark, that's a really good film. This is definitely the best M. Night Shyamalan film I've seen in quite some time.